All right, everyone. Hope you're doing well. This is a video that, honestly, there are several I guess you could say, not just Tyler Perry, but the shows I review in general, more like the pop culture kind of content I love to cover on the side. Aside from this, I got a WandaVision video I want to do. I want to talk about the Dr. Seuss stuff, the Oprah, Prince Harry and Meghan interview, that kind of stuff. So be on the lookout for kind of a barrage of the out of the norm for the channel kind of thing. But, I do hope to do more content like that soon. Like I said, got a different house than the one I originally signed up for. And just seeing that it's 4 rooms instead of 3, I cannot wait to get that office room, if you will, set up. Like I really want to do like a full-on podcast and whatnot, so that's something in the works. But this video is something that honestly I didn't want to do at first, because I feel like more than enough people have already spoken on the movie. But I have been getting some DMs from followers who have said they've seen the movie and what they thought about it, and they wanted to get my 2 cents on it. So Coming to America, ironically enough, I watched it twice. I did watch it twice. I watched it once when it was released. I believe it was like Thursday or Friday of last week. And then I went ahead and watched it again on Monday, which was the 8th. I just decided to give the movie another shot. But I will say that I enjoyed the movie for what it was. Was it the worst thing I've ever watched? Hell no. But was it as enjoyable as the first? Not really, because I went into this movie not expecting it to live up to the original. I mean, there are very few, if any, sequels that are either as good or better than the originals. Just a few I can think of off the top of my head. Sister Act 2. I don't see why the first one, I feel like the first one I don't think the first Sister Act gets a lot of hate. But I think because of how beloved the second one is, the first one is kind of just, panned by fans. I don't even want to say critics. Shrek 2, dear Lord. It's a huge debate as to whether or not that is better than the first one. I prefer the first Friday over next Friday, but Friday after next, oh my gosh. When I tell you gut busting laughter, I can't tell you if I like it more than the first, but I will say that the third one, very, very, very hilarious. But Blues Brothers 2000, nostalgia for me. I was born in 91, so I remember growing up with like Cinemax and HBO, and that movie would be playing all the time. Looking back, it was an awful movie in terms of the premise, but the music, holy crap. So I have a soft spot for it. I'd watch the second one over the first one, and I love the first one. So just to name a few examples of movies that had, follow-up films that either surpassed or were at least as good as the first one. Coming to America, it was already at an uphill battle because of how beloved the first one was. It was a movie coming out over 30 years after the original. And, the first trailer brought about a lot of hate, just the first little teaser. I remember as more trailers came out, I was actually, this actually looks pretty damn good. So, what are my thoughts? It felt like this really wasn't a King/Prince Akeem movie. Like in the first movie, it was about the prince and Sime coming over from Zamunda to America to find him a bride. So pretty much it was like Prince Akeem going against the rules and regulations of his father and the country, basically being a rebel, kind of like Prince Harry. Look, not to kind of jump ships here, but watching that Oprah interview, it was literally like I was watching Coming to America in real life, except it was the British version. You got Prince Harry coming over to America and he finds his bride. That's literally what it felt like. So essentially, Akeem really was not like himself from the first movie, which is partly understandable. I mean, time has gone by. He has 3 daughters now. It is strange that his father, no, it's not really strange how this works in a lot of hierarchies, like where the king is king until he's dead. And then, the next in line takes over the throne. But it's just kind of odd how, Prince Akeem is literally the same person for the most part. Where it's like his father's, I've spoiled you too much. You're soft. As soon as I die, you'll be dead within a month. You know what? Make it a week. And it's like, Well, I mean, he kicked a lot. He kicked some ass. You know, Samuel L. Jackson, you know, when he was robbing McDowell's, is that the name of it? McDowell's, from the first movie. And it's like he was capable, and it's just like spoiled. I don't think Akeem is soft. You know, like he had a adorable sense of being naive in the first film and whatnot. He was well aware of the customs of Zamunda, hence why he decided to strike out on his own, because he didn't just want to marry for, you know, tradition or to bring about like a peace treaty. He wanted to marry for love. He wanted somebody, you know, a partner, not, well, for a lack of a better phrase, a sex servant, because literally his wife, you know, the barking woman for the first film, it was like, oh yeah, whatever you like, I like. Whatever you do, I do. I'm pretty much just a servant that he would have sex with. That's literally what a quote-unquote wife would be if they were just following tradition. So he went out to follow his heart and found his love. So it just felt like in this film, he was like completely opposite, which isn't uncommon in these kind of stories or even real life, where you become the one thing you fight against. You know, in the first film, it was kind of like Akeem being his father. Not that he despised his father, he just didn't want to follow tradition. Yet in this film, his entire thing was upholding tradition. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. Not to mention, I do understand that Eddie Murphy, that was another big thing about this film. It's the fact that a lot of things that flew in the first film wouldn't fly today. Like there was a lot more, you know, trying to be politically correct and not being as raunchy, because Coming to America was like, you know, after the, you know, raw and delirious Eddie Murphy. And I believe in the first one, it wasn't Eddie who really had a foul mouth, but it was like more so those around him. And not to mention, it just felt like this was tame. I can definitely tell, like, this was a movie with like the whole family in mind, where, you know, oh, anybody could watch this movie. It isn't something, I think the rating was like what, like was it PG or something, or PG, no, excuse me, like PG-13. Let me just, Coming to America, I just want to see if I can find the rating. Yeah, I believe it was PG-13, you know, Amazon Prime. So obviously he couldn't be as raunchy and whatnot, the content couldn't be as risque, if you will, as the first film. Yeah, I mean, aside from the level of, you know, content, if you will, it felt like Eddie Murphy kind of took a back seat in the film to kind of let, you know, the other cast members and stars shine. What's his name? Lavelle, aka Jermaine Fowler. You know, I actually liked his opening scene where he went in for that job interview, and he pretty much could tell he was being, you know, racially profiled by the person giving the interview. And we just found out, like, you know, he just turned 30, 31, and he's pretty much trying to find his way in the world after, you know, pretty much being given a certain look because of how he talks, how he looks, that kind of thing. So to actually see him go from this, hey, I'm going to make it on my own, I don't do handouts, to, hey, let's go to Africa. And then after that, he pretty much lives up to be the stereotype that he's looked down for being. He's like, it just didn't feel right. It felt like we had a huge conflict of his personality from when he was in America to when he hit Zamunda. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit up here and act like, you know what, hey, I'm doing this YouTube thing myself, I don't need any handouts. Then like Tyler Perry comes to my door, hey, I'd like to give you a job at Tyler Perry Studios working on like social media and whatnot. Okay, I'm down. You see what I mean there? Not to mention Mary, Leslie Jones' character. Honestly, I can't really say there was like any particular characters I despised. I felt for the most part they did good in the roles they were given. What I feel is there were a bit too many characters, so I feel like if nothing else, this film kind of lacked focus. It felt like there were a lot of, you know, moral lessons and potential development that they were trying to do, but they didn't spend enough time on properly, you know, developing those stories. I think like one of the biggest things was Lavelle's quest to prove himself worthy of being a prince. What was it, like 3 different things he had to pass for the princess test? Princess, not princess. Princess test. Then his budding romance with the official barber of the Zamunda, and from there they actually end up getting married by the end of the film. So we also get a situation where the acts, I know this was something that was pretty much, talked about online. The fact that for the most part, the actors really didn't care about being consistent with their accent, because even within like the first scene where I think, Eddie Murphy is training with bow staffs with his daughters, his accent just felt so just phoned in. It just felt like he wasn't really even trying. There were just so many scenes in the movie where it felt like the accent was being attempted, and then other times where it just felt dropped. At this point, I was watching a movie like, I'd rather Eddie Murphy be Eddie Murphy, if no other reason than to just do the donkey voice. It would be cool to just have Donkey being the king of Zamunda. It was just, I don't know. But Wesley Snipes, in my opinion, was like the MVP. Like, his acting was on point. I feel like he was having a good time. I felt like Wesley Snipes was like the life of the film. His accent freaking on point. It just felt, it was a joy to watch. He was definitely a highlight. I'm glad to see him on screen again. It's just been so long. I remember, like, what was his first acting gig, as the villain from the Michael Jackson Bad video or short film, because Mike called them short films. And it's pretty interesting. So from there, I really do think that Shari Heatley, aka Queen Lisa, it was great to see her again. It was just great to see a lot of the original cast. It really did. Like watching the trailers, it made me smile, but actually watching the film, it was just good to see all these black people together. Also, shout out to the wardrobe team department. Like, even if you didn't like the movie or the content, just the look of the film was great. I believe it was filmed in like Rick Ross's mansion or something. Like most of the film, like the palace and whatnot. I could be wrong, but I do believe that's actually accurate. I want to double check that. Yeah, it was. It was actually part of the film. I don't know if it was the mansion that Wesley Snipes' characters had, or if it was, just the throne. The royal family mansion for Akeem and his family. But in any case, sorry about that. I just had to look it up. I remember hearing it on another person's review, but I just wanted to double check. So it was just a great scenery and whatnot. James Earl Jones, it was great to see him again during the first part of the movie. One of the funniest line is, when he talked about how he wants his funeral right then and there while he's still alive, because I don't know why, it was just hilarious to me. It was sad that he actually died towards the end of his funeral, but I think it was when Morgan Freeman was kind of giving a eulogy, and then in the background we in a low tone we hear Gladys Knight singing "He's leaving, because it starts off with like In Vogue and then Salt and Pepper, and it's just a bunch of random things happening. But it was just, again, great to see all of these black actors, musical artists, comedians doing their thing. But once again, that was one of the slight flaws of the film, when you had too many characters. So it felt like, it was a baton pass so everybody can kind of have their moment. But it didn't feel like there was a lot of development to really make you care about the characters that much, as opposed to just seeing, kind of glorified cameos. I know a lot of people were giving flack to the film about, the fact that the barbershop crew was still alive. I didn't really mind it. I mean, it's a comedy. Even I wouldn't even go so far as to try to break down, okay, in what reality would these people still be alive? They were still like one of the best parts of the movie, aside from Wesley Snipes' character, and of course Randy Watson at the end of the film. It was just hilarious when they were trying to play the guessing game, when Tracy Morgan was introducing who he was, kind of hyping him up. And I think one of my favorite parts is Lunel, when he's like, don't play with me, because there were just so many like aunties and whatnot. I can imagine saying that, you better not be playing with me. And then when he comes out and the people from Queens just go off, it was just hilarious. I believe he was singing a "We Are Family." So, also, if we want to talk about the story, so basically, James Earl Jones, the king, he just said that, since Akeem did not have any male heirs, there would have to be a situation where, possibly his daughter would have to marry a prince from another country in order to merge them, or, Akeem would just get killed not too long after he, becomes king. But it turns out he has a bastard son, and they use that term throughout the movie a lot. Your bastard son, your bastard child in America. So they actually do a flashback to when Akeem and Simi were in the club in New York, and Leslie Jones' character and a friend, they actually go to their apartment or whatever, and Simi gets it on with the friend, and Akeem actually gets high because she blows smoke in his face, and they have sex. So part of me is like, Akeem really wasn't, I don't believe this was consensual sex. This kind of reminds me of the Wonder Woman 84 when her and Steve get it on while Steve is inhabiting the body of her neighbor. So it's like, is that rape or something? But I don't know. So here's the part that gets me. This was my first slight problem with the movie. He goes to America to find his son. Okay? He goes to America to find his son. And then when he does, and reveals who he is and that he wants to take his son to take a princess test, is like, wait, this is my dad? And then, her brother and everybody in the apartment like, wait, what's going on here? It's like, well, back in the day, I used to be a hoe and whatnot. So it's like not even a DNA test to confirm that's actually the son, because of the fact she said, I was a hoe back in those days. Who's to say she wasn't sleeping around with just other random men at that same night or within that same week, got knocked up? I mean, they tried to do a scene where, Akeem and Lavelle are kind of, giving each other the same look. So it's like, wait a minute. Yeah, they do look alike. That's why they're related. I do feel like this was almost as ridiculous as I think it was probably more ridiculous in Mamma Mia, the first one, where Sophie writes the letters to the three guys that her mom dated, and they all come to Greece. And instead of just getting a DNA test to determine who the real father is, which was suggested at the end of the film, they all agreed to share a third of being the father, which made no damn sense to me. So in this case, it's almost, I think this probably beats it out. You go to America, you find a guy, you say you're your son, and instead of just getting, confirmation that's the son, you decide to bring him back to Africa, and he's like, hey, I'm not going without my mom. So the mom comes too. And they fly halfway across the world. And there are just so many reasons this makes no sense. But I just let it go because, hey, it's comedy, whatever. Let's just go with it. And it was actually pretty cool. It was the oldest daughter. There's a storyline with her. I mean, I guess this is the women empowerment thing in the movie, where she wants to be the next ruler of Zamunda. But, royal tradition, it has to be a male. Not to mention, I believe it was also mentioned by the female barber that it is against the law for a woman to own a business, or royal groomer, I believe is the proper name. And she, if you watch the live action Aladdin, the Disney live action of Aladdin with Will Smith, it was mentioned that, if you watch the film, Jasmine's whole thing is, why does it have to be a male to be Sultan? Why can't I be the next one? And then she ends up being the Sultan at the end of the film. So you can literally predict where this, you don't have to be a critical analyzing theorist like I am. You could just watch the film and you could tell beat by beat what's going to happen next. Yeah, I mean, I did laugh a few times. I feel like the laughs were kind of spread out throughout the film. It wasn't like, I had a consistent string of laughs back to back. It felt like I was cringing more than laughing during certain scenes because it felt like they were really trying to force jokes, not to mention relying too heavily on older jokes that worked better in the first film, because when they popped up in this film, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it was funnier than the first film. Not to mention there was the one scene where towards the end where the son is, he passed a princely test and he could get married to Tiana Taylor, who was playing the daughter of Wesley Snipes' character. And yeah, they were supposed to get married to merge the countries. And he overhears his father talking with Wesley Snipes' character. And he's like, oh, I had the brilliant plan to broker peace. You go to America to get your bastard son so he can marry my daughter and we can join without any violence. So he overhears part of the conversation. Akeem says nothing, because he's kind of like, yeah, whatever. He doesn't even say that. So it's almost like that trope of overhearing part of the conversation instead of the full conversation, and the part you hear is the part that pisses a character off. So he takes off with the royal groomer to get married in America. Then Akeem goes after him. Then they go back to Zamunda, and the prince is going to be like the royal ambassador between America and Zamunda, which makes a lot of sense actually. And then his daughter will be the next in line for the throne. So everything works out by the end. It just felt like this is, if you want to watch a movie just for like, background noise, or, maybe to get a laugh here and there, this is a good film. Like if you don't watch it critically, trying to analyze everything, you'll enjoy it. I mean, there are some moments. The film does have its moments, but I feel like you could just watch the first one. If you're looking for a lot of laughs and whatnot, just watch the first one. I think the best scene, if I were to say the best scene, was when Akeem was mopping the floor. I believe this is after he found out his son, went back to America to get, elope with the royal groomer. And I believe it was Cleo. Yeah, his father-in-law, who came in, and they just had a little talk, about what it means being a father, if his mother would be proud of him. That was like my favorite scene, because this felt like this was truly Akeem, back to his roots, finding his way. We really need more of that side of Akeem as opposed to a traditionalist, because it just felt like this entire film was like Talladega Nights. You know how Will Ferrell's character was all like, his father told him when he was a kid, if you're not first, you're last. And he lived his entire life by that saying. It felt like Akeem was living his entire life based off the final words his father gave him about, getting a son, following tradition and stuff like that. It just felt like instead of being his own man, his own king, his own father, well, being a father himself, he really just kind of hung on more to what his father was telling him. So it didn't feel like Akeem was actually a character, as opposed to just a plot device, if that's the best way to put it. Because you watch Coming to America, you want to see it for Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, but it felt like we were getting more of the other characters who really weren't that interesting, because it goes back to what I said before of far too many characters, and we just spent random moments with them. So it didn't feel like it was a complete story. It felt like there were random bits of development here and there. Like some people would get like a character arc in 3 minutes, while other people got like 20 minutes, and then other people just cameos. But overall, it was an okay film. I really wouldn't mind if they didn't make another one. They didn't really need to make this one, but I'm not going to shoot down a movie because it actually gave a lot of black people great roles in a film that hopefully brought in a lot of money. Because I'm never going to say anything about seeing black people work. It was just great to see a lot of black talent in one film. I do think there is a rumored sequel. Murphy said in the interview there could be a Coming to America 3 when he is turned 75, which will be 16 years. That's the release of Coming to America. I mean, hey, more power to you if you do it, but I don't think we really need it. But what are your thoughts in the about the film? I didn't want to go as long as I did on this movie. Maybe I'll do a live stream in the near future, but I could have done without it. I mean, it was okay. It was all right, but watching it 2 times was a shocker. I'm surprised I did that. But yeah, that's really all I got for this. So let me know your thoughts, and make sure you like and subscribe. And if you want to donate to the channel, feel free to do so on PayPal or Cash App. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon.